Okay, so here we are at day 127. It's June the 20th, and this meditation was originally written 10 years ago today, and these videos are part of the year-long commemoration. I'm going back and reading each of the meditations that I wrote in that year-long experiment, and in addition to recording a reading of the meditations, and just that in about 9 minutes or so, I'm also posting a blog commentary each day, and that is on duartebeinglearning.blogspot.com. So if you want to, and I encourage, if you happen to come across this video, to please check out the blog, duartebeinglearning.blogspot.com. It's on Blogger, Google Blogger, so if you just type in Eduardo Duarte or Duarte or Being and Learning, you'll find it. It gives you some context, a lot more context actually, for each day, each meditation. Sometimes I go on and write about the experiment itself, sometimes I talk about the content of what I've written, and today in my commentary I wrote about this tension between the experiment and the publication of the material that ultimately was published as this book, Being and Learning. And the tension really comes around the fact that the experiment initially was just that, a daily experiment. I was trying to break from what I consider to be the demands of a certain kind of academic writing. But ultimately, I decided to publish the meditations in the book, as a book. And it was in doing that I had to make some decisions about how to organize material that didn't of itself really have a traditional way of being organized. But I did organize it in the end around chapters. And what I write about today is the fact that the non-linear process of the thinking that produced this writing is really evident in the fact that today's meditation that I wrote on this day, June 20th, 1/3 of it constitutes the end of Chapter 8, Meditative Thinking, and the other 2/3 constitute the beginning of Chapter 6, which is called Aristotle's Critique. So you have a meditation, the one written today that I'm about to read, split into two parts, actually, so that the first part, which is the first third, is the last paragraph of Chapter 8, and the other 2/3 of the meditation were the first 3 paragraphs of Chapter 6. So it's very non-linear in that sense. So why don't I get going and reading this so I can get it in. So, again, this is the writing from today, June 20th, originally written 10 years ago, 2004, and it's day 127 of the daily writing experiment that happened and that I'm commemorating. So, last paragraph, Chapter 8. To be seized by wonder is to remain steadfast in and before the gap that preserves possibility. When we are seized by wonder, we endure the alterity of the other and thereby maintain the gap that preserves plurality, difference, possibility. The pathos of compassion is the wonder that is endured by the learner, the one devoted to the other, to the Tao, to the care being. Thus, to endure the pathos of compassion is to be the one devoted to learning, the lover of wisdom. The philosopher is the apprentice of the art of caring, the one who has entrusted herself to the painstaking listening of the other. To be an apprentice of caring is to be enjoined intersubjectively. To be drawn into this art of caring is to wander into the openness of the open region and to take up residency with the sage. To dwell poetically alongside the sage and to be guided and directed by him is to respond affirmatively to the invocation to become enjoined with others, to become attuned to beings and the complex relational network that is the horizon of beings. and now to the beginning of chapter 6, which is where the meditation that I originally wrote continues. To dwell with the sage is to become a student of learning, a student of the one who remains authentically seized by wonder. To dwell with the sage is to be guided and directed along the path of silence where we take up the art of compassion. The sage is the one who remains steadfast in openness and thereby most active in the process of building and creating meaning. To remain steadfastly open to openness itself is to remain constant in one's waiting upon the arrival of the ineffable, to remain attuned to the bourne of learning. To remain attuned to the bourne of learning is to bear the gift of teachability, the perplexity of the questioning stand. The sage is the one who offers this gift with her evocative saying that conveys the bourne of wisdom, which, when heeded, invokes us to remain silent and listen. The authorial and judgmental voice that bears down upon others is silenced, and the reifying gaze that turns subjects, ends in themselves, into objects, means for the success of instrumental and calculative thinking, is blinded when the directive of wisdom is received and the learner takes up the action of meditation that announces the arrival of the ineffable, which unifies the many intersubjectively in the collective spirit of creation, being's processual unfolding, the Tao. In bearing the gift of teachability, the sage lets learning happen. To repeat what Heidegger says, quote, "If the relation between the teacher and the taught is genuine, therefore, there is never a place in it for the authority of the know-it-all or the authoritative sway of the official. Because, quote, the teacher must be capable of being more teachable than the apprentices. The teacher is far less assured of this ground than those who learn are of theirs," unquote, from Lecture 1, What is Called Thinking. We say the sage is the one who is capable of guiding the enjoyment of the learning community because she remains most capable of learning, most capable and ready for the unforeseen, that is, the arrival of the ineffable with the appearance of the other, the one who is most capable of standing before the gap, the not yet, the freedom that conserves the possibility of creating meaning, of building and repairing the world, of guiding the stewardship that is the ongoing reception and response to the directive of wisdom, the beckoning of openness itself. To be devoted to learning is to be a lover of wisdom, is to leap into the processual unfolding of being, and to endure the wonder that the world is incomplete and inviting our participation in its ongoing creation. But to be devoted to learning is also to endure the pathos that this work entails, namely, the cultivation of a dialogic community. To endure this work is to be seized by the possibility of creation, by the possibility of building and maintaining an abode of peace and freedom. That is why we have said the sage is the one who offers the gift of teachability, the evocative saying that disrupts the expectations of the calculative learner and enjoins him in the learning that is poetic dialogue, by seizing the apprentice and drawing him into meditative practice. This seizing of the apprentice by the sage through evocative saying is the conveying of the arrival of the ineffable, the appearance and regioning of openness itself that has seized the sage and beckoned her to enjoin others in purposeful wandering along the path of silence, the path of possibility. Thus, in mapping the path of the sage, we follow Plato's survey of the philosopher's journey. With Plato, we identify the Heraclitean silence before the word, the heeding of language's appeal, and the recognition of mortality, the limits of the discursive that appears with the arrival of the ineffable, and the possibility that it grants to the intuitive. To be seized by wonder is to let go of the discursive, calculative discourse, and to be borne in upon the intuitive received with the meditative practice that Kamarajiva and the Zen Chuan school of sudden enlightenment identify in contrast to the mental, cognitive concentration and sitting that attempts to overcome self through self as the direct enlightenment of the mind, an experiential practice that conditions the conserving of vital energy, the sustenance of creation. For Plato, the experiential practice of philosophy was most authentic when it was truly devoted to and thereby waiting upon the arrival of the ineffable. To wait upon the ineffable for Plato is to remain steadfast with wonder, to the wonder that Socrates, his teacher, was captured by, so much that it rendered him incapable of writing, an endeavor that would seek to freeze and render permanent that which is constantly in process and thereby illegible. To be seized by wonder is to proceed along the path of silence and to hear the word, to heed wisdom, and to act, to engage in dialogic and active experience of being with others. Hannah Arendt conveys Plato's position on this matter when she paraphrases Plato's seventh letter, lines 341b through 343a. Quote, "Of the subjects that concern me, nothing is known, since there exists nothing in writing about them, nor will there ever exist anything in the future. People who write about such things know nothing. They do not even know themselves. For there is no way of putting these things in words like other things one can learn. Hence, no one who possesses the true faculty of thinking, nous, and therefore knows the weakness of words, will ever risk framing thoughts in discourse, let alone fix them in so inflexible a form as that of written letters." And that's a quote, again, from Plato's seventh letter, lines 341b to 343a, cited in Hannah Arendt. And that's where the meditation ends on this day, June 20th, commemorated 10 years later, this day, June 20th. Again, please check out my blog, Duarte Being Learning, for more context for this particular day of meditation.